South Carolina has an elite pass rush. If Texas A&M wants to get this big road win, the O-line is going to have to show up to stop it.
You are Locked On Aggies, your daily podcast on the Texas A&M Aggies, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome on into Locked On Aggies. I'm your host, Andrew Stefaniak. Thanks for making Locked On Aggies your first listen every single day. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. You can start the season with a big return on FanDuel. New customers can place a $5 bet, and you'll get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. So, ladies and gentlemen, today we're going to talk a little bit about the South Carolina team that Texas A&M is set to face off with. We're also going to talk about what Coach Elko had to say in his press conference yesterday. A lot of interesting things. We're going to talk in segment 3 about what's going on in the quarterback position. We're going to talk about why Coach Elko is so concerned about this football game, and for a fair reason. We're going to run through all that, but we're going to start the day talking a little bit about how good this front has been for South Carolina. We're going to talk a little bit about, in general, some players that we need to be concerned about when it comes to South Carolina. But to me, the first two names, without any kind of thought, are the guys that have been getting pressure all year long in Kyle Kennard, and then, of course, the young guy, Dylan Stewart. These two guys have combined for 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13 sacks on the year. As a team, South Carolina has 28 sacks. And if you look at the numbers, you've got linebackers with sacks, you've got DBs with sacks, you've got some other edge rushers with sacks. This South Carolina front and this South Carolina defense in general is pretty solid. I mean, if you look at their season, they give up 19 to Old Dominion. That was a weird game. They give up 6 to Kentucky. They give up 36 to LSU. They give up 7 to Akron, 27 to Ole Miss, 27 to Bama, 9 to Oklahoma. I mean, they've been up and down, but there's been games, but even the games where they give up points, they've been able to make some big plays. The other thing that's been consistent for South Carolina has been turnovers. They've got 10 interceptions and 6 fumble recoveries on the season. But what I found interesting is take care of the football, because look at this. They have, I believe it was, 15 forced fumbles. They've only recovered 6 of them. Now, what that tells me, that's bad fumble luck. I mean, we see this all the time. That means they're getting the football on the ground an awful lot, and they are not recovering it an awful lot. And I mean, anybody that watches a football game knows sometimes the football on a fumble, it just ain't going to bounce your way. And that's been the case for this South Carolina team. So take care of the football. I mean, once again, turnover margin, turnover battle is always important. You found a way to, win that against LSU. But in this ball game, it's going to be even more important knowing how many turnovers, how many forced fumbles that this South Carolina team has, produced. I mean, you can't turn the ball over. You can't put the ball on the ground. You can't throw interceptions. You've got to find a way to slow not let them create turnovers, which they've done all season long. But that scares me. I mean, I'm more scared about the 15 forced fumbles than I am the 6, recovered fumbles, because that means they're getting the ball on the ground. You have to make sure, A, you don't get the ball on the ground, and B, that everyone on offense is ready for this, knowing, hey, they forced a lot of fumbles. Be ready to jump on top of the football. But so that pass rush, point is, this South Carolina defense, they've given up some points. They have, 36 to LSU, which is understandable. LSU is a really good offense. 27 to Ole Miss, same thing there. 27 on the road to Alabama. They've given up a lot, 27 points to 2 really good football teams, 36 points to another really good football team. So they've given up some points, but they've also had the games against Oklahoma where they give up 9, Kentucky where they give up 6. Obviously, those two offenses are by no means elite, but this is a good South Carolina defense. And this is college football. I mean, you're not giving up 27 to Alabama and Ole Miss. I mean, you could do a lot worse. You know what I mean? You could do a lot worse than those numbers. You really can. So now you would obviously like to, if you're South Carolina, to hang around more in that game against Ole Miss. But the point is for Texas A&M, the first goal here is going to be offensive line play. Your offensive line is going to make or break this game. If you aren't able to slow down the South Carolina pass rush, it's going to be a problem. What happens at quarterback? We're going to get into that in segment 3. We'll get into it. But looking at this South Carolina pass rush, I mean, if you aren't able to slow them down and they're going to live in the backfield all game long, that is a serious problem. Whether it's Marcel Reed, whether it's Connor Wigman, you can't have this South Carolina pass rush in the backfield all game long because it's just going to be hard for either of your quarterbacks to do anything. So this defensive line was important against LSU, no question. But it's going to be just as important against South Carolina, if not more important, because this pass rush, I mean, we have seen them create havoc. I mean, I remember watching that Kentucky game specifically. I watched the LSU game. I've watched South Carolina, I'd say, about 3 times, I think. But, I mean, I remember in that Kentucky game, how many sacks did they have? They had 5 sacks against Kentucky, but it looked like they could have had 20. I mean, they lived in the backfield in that game. And that's why Kentucky wasn't able to do anything. It was suffocating defense. It was like a python. I mean, it was just slowly killing you. This offensive line is to be ready for that. So those players, Kyle Kennard and then Dylan Stewart, you know, they've like I said, combined for about 13 sacks, 2 of the better pass rushers in the SEC. Coming off the edge, you got to be ready for them. You got to know they're coming. You've got to know they're coming. This offensive line's got to be ready because these guys are really good. And if you're not able to slow these guys down, it's going to be hard for your quarterback. So that's something I'm paying attention to. Also on defense is Nick Imawari. He's a guy. I mean, you want to talk about just a dog. I'd say he's going to be a day 2 pick in the NFL draft. He leads the team in tackles right now, actually, with about – I lost it. I'm getting texted about a car. Okay. He has 49 tackles on the year. He has 4 interceptions on the year. And he's got 2 pick sixes. Point is, we can sit here and talk more about Imawari and the type of player he is all game long. I mean, all day long. But this defense has dudes. They have some serious players. And, you know, I don't know if I have a ton of confidence in the South Carolina offense. I mean, they've proved, you know, they've had their games where, okay, you put up 25 points against an Alabama. You put up 33 points against LSU. They've proven that they can score some points at times, you know, 50 against Akron and then 31 against Kentucky. And against the Kentucky defense, it's really solid. They've proven they can score some points, but I don't know if I believe in the consistency of it. I mean, 35, it's kind of hot or cold. You put up 23 against Old Dominion and 3 against Ole Miss, but then you put up 35 against Oklahoma and 33 against LSU. It's hit or miss, that offense, and their defense helps a lot. I mean, they create a lot of turnovers. The defense turns to offense. So looking at this South Carolina team, making sure that this team is able to slow the pass rush is going to be crucial. So if you aren't, Texas A&M is going to struggle to win this football game. If your offensive line has a good day, it's going to be a day that comes down to your offense being taking care of the football and moving the football. But at the end of the day, the offensive line is going to play a huge role as well. We're going to talk a little bit about the offensive weapons that South Carolina has and why they've got some guys there too that can really hurt you. So we're going to talk about that, and then we're going to get into the quotes. We're going to talk a little bit about what Coach Elko had to say about the quarterback battle. We'll do that coming up right here on Locked On Aggies. But first, I want to tell you about our friends over at Roy. Hey, Locked On Aggies fans, it's time to recognize the Roy Player of the Week. So far this season, we've pulled over $20,000 to support players on Roy. Micro deposits lead to massive change. With the Roy app, you can direct your support to the athletes you love, ensuring that all the funds go to the specific player you choose. Unlike collectives, you know exactly where your support is going, and you even receive exclusive content like personal videos and updates after the season. The best part, it's risk-free. If the athlete transfers or doesn't deliver the content, you get your money back. This week, I'm supporting Marcel Reed. You can always pitch money to Marcel after the performance he put together against LSU, helping the Aggies get the massive win. Even $10 makes a difference. Let's show Marcel Reed the love and keep him connected to our school. Remember, pay today, celebrate tomorrow. Your support sets your team up for success. Plus, don't miss out on Roy's exciting giveaway. Win 2 tickets to a game in November. Just download Roy, create an account, and enter referral code Locked On, and you're entered. Already on Roy, any contribution to an athlete's campaign also gets you entered automatically. No purchase necessary. Void where prohibited. Download Roy now and join the NIL game with no subscriptions and no fees. And be sure to check us out on Instagram, Facebook, and X at Roy_return_on_you for more info. Roy, support the players, change the game. So the two players on offense, we just highlighted the defense. We talked about how, hey, this is a really solid pass rush. They create a lot of turnovers. This South Carolina defense is not going to be easy to move the football on. Now, the offense is where it gets a little bit interesting. You got Lenore Sellers at quarterback, and you got Rocket Sanders at running back. Of course, Rocket Sanders is a guy that had some technical difficulties there, folks, but we're back. And so to get more onto these offensive players here, Rocket Sanders is a player the Texas A&M fans know well because he was at Arkansas in the game that you played in Jerry's World for a while. Now, Lenore Sellers has taken over as the guy. Spencer Rattler's gone. He's throwing interceptions for the Saints now. And looking at what this offense brings to the table, you know, Sellers is a guy who I was high on in the offseason. I was a Sellers guy this offseason. I would say when it comes to my expectations for him to this point in the season, you know, he's been banged up. He's missed some games. I would say I don't know if I'd say he's reached my expectations. I mean, so far as a team into the season, they've already played 7 games and they've thrown the ball 177 times. So let's do that by 7. They're throwing it about 25 times per contest. And they're running the ball. So it's a similar to Texas A&M. They are trying to run the rock. You know, you've got 308 total carries on the season. You've seen Ashford come in and carry the football, the backup quarterback. Obviously, Rocket Sanders and Lenore Sellers both run the ball. Sellers just carried the ball 84 times. So they're going to try and beat you with their running game. It's kind of funny. I think South Carolina is kind of like, and when I say this, you know, South Carolina fans, no one take disrespect to this, but it's like, I think they're kind of like the Texas A&M light. It's like they're doing the same thing Texas A&M is doing. I just think the Aggies are just a little bit better, and they very well could beat Texas A&M at home. I'm not saying that can't happen, but you know, that's kind of my thought here. It's a somewhat similar. They like to run the football. They'll air it out when they need to. They've got a quarterback who can run the ball, and they play great defense. You know, that's kind of the similarities here between these two football teams. But those are two guys in Sellers and Sanders that you got to pay attention to. They can be really, really good for this South Carolina team. So we have got to pay attention to that. Now I want to move a little on to some quotes from what Coach had to say. And, looking at this, here's what Coach Elko had to say about South Carolina's defense. They're extremely talented. Their front is phenomenal. They're athletic at the second level. They have a first-round safety. Watching them, they allow their defensive line to impact the game. And what they've done is successfully turn people over and create opportunities for their offense. It's by far the best group we've played to date. That is, knowing you've played a Notre Dame defense, that is a bold. I agree with you when it comes to the rest of the defenses you've played. But that Notre Dame defense, I don't know if I'm all in on that. I mean, listen, this defense is better than obviously McNeese, Florida, Bowling Green, Arkansas, Missouri, Mississippi State, LSU. So I agree. I just don't know if I agree on Notre Dame. Now, I think what Coach Elko does a really good job of is praising the opposing team. You kind of got to do that. You got to do that. You want to be the coach that only has great things to say about the opposing team. You don't want to be the coach that's like, well, we should steamroll them, this and that. You don't want to be that coach. You want to be the coach that's gracious to the other team and you say good things, you say the right things, because it's just you let your play speak, and that's what matters. And I think that's what that's how Coach Elko likes to kind of do things here. So that was a good quote about their defense. And then listen to this one. This quote, this should say a lot too. This week's road trip will be the most challenging game to date. This is going to be an enormous challenge for our program. It's back to work. So, I mean, point is, now that I think Coach Elko means that, because I think he understands the advantage playing at Kyle Field in front of one of the best crowds, if not the best crowds in college football, brings you. It brings you a massive advantage. When you're playing on the road against a solid football team, things get a lot harder. You've played all of your tough games, and this is the whole reason we believe Texas A&M could be in the spot they're in right now, is because they play such a challenging schedule or at home and not on the road, and that's a positive for a team. So I don't know if I agree. I still believe those games are tougher when it comes to LSU at home and Texas at home, and maybe not Missouri now. Maybe not Missouri, but Notre Dame, yes. Like those games are to me were more of a challenge than this game. But the on the road factor with a great defense is not going to make this easy. Coach Elko said that Chase Besantis will probably be out the next couple of weeks. I think that, and then we heard Trey Zune talk a little bit about the offensive line stepping up. And I was really, he says, we haven't had a drop off on the O-line. We have the depth where every single person is ready to go. I love that. I mean, and that's so important, is having that depth, having those players that someone can just step in and it doesn't feel like you're dropping off a ton. It's huge. And you need that all across the roster, not just at offensive line, not just at running back, at quarterback. You need that all over the roster. And I think for the most part, Texas A&M has had that to this point in the season. But offensive line is even more important, especially knowing that this week you're going to be playing against one of the better fronts in all of college football. Trey Zune said about playing South Carolina, it's loud, it's a tough environment, it's going to be a tough on-the-road game. We have to play our brand of football and go to work. No question there. You got to play your brand of football. You got to find a way to win this game. Play good defense, score points, move the ball on the ground. It's what you're looking for in this game. Now we're going to move on to what Coach Elko had to say about the quarterback position. And what he had to say was really, really interesting. And we'll talk about why coming up right here on Locked On Aggies. Get ready to tackle the NFL action with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook, because right now new customers can bet $5 and get $150 back in bonus bets if you win. The FanDuel Sportsbook app gives you everything you need to place live bets on the NFL all in one place. So when you get a hunch in the middle of the game, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you place your bets. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today. You'll get started with the $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. That's FanDuel.com. Never waste a hunch and make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sports betting partner of the NFL. So, Coach Elko had to say a lot about the quarterback position, but we'll start with this quote. We just want to see how this week plays out. And we just want to see how this week plays out and what we think gives us the best shot to go into this challenge and be successful. You know, that's one of those kind of cop-out quotes. We're going to get more into it. He talks more about it. We're looking for some consistency in the throw game, and it feels like we're still working through some of the timing elements of it. We have to get our passing game working in a rhythm, in a way it can be productive and efficient for us to get down the road where we want to. Kind of the same thing there. I don't think Coach Klein or Coach Elko is very happy with how the passing attack has looked to this point in the season. You know, and I agree it could definitely be better. Coach Elko said we have a plan for Marcel Reed ready at all times because you never know how injury-wise the game is going to go. It's a credit to Colin Klein that he's able to do that in the way it doesn't create a volume for our offensive players. It's not like we're running two separate offenses because we have enough wrinkles in our system that we can tailor it to specific quarterbacks. It's true, and that's why bringing in Marcel Reed against LSU, you were able to do something so special and find a way to come back and win that game. And then we got to try to figure it out for this offense, what's best for those two young kids, what's best for the program for the rest of the season. That will be the conversation this week. He then goes on to continue to talk about, you know, the position, and he goes on Connor Wigman. He still has a ton of growth, repetition that needs to gather to be able to be consistent, go through the progressions at the pace and speed you need them to. Sometimes our wideouts are a little too slow getting to where they need to be, and sometimes Connor's a little too fast going through his progressions. So that's what Coach Elko had. There's a lot of cop-outs, you know, when it comes to the quarterback position. A lot, you know, there. I mean, nothing wrong with it. It's gamesmanship. I wouldn't want Coach Elko to come out and say anything else. But the way I think this is going to play out, I kind of have a feeling that he's going to throw Connor Wigman out there. I do. And now I think the leash is incredibly short. I think if Connor Wigman goes a couple drives and does not look right, I think they're going to Marcel Reed quick. And I'm not saying I agree with this. I don't want that. I don't know if I agree with it. I always trust this coaching staff. I always am going to trust this coaching staff. They've given me no reasons to not trust them to this point. I'm going to always trust this staff. And you know, so far, I mean, that's kind of the whole thing is so far this season, they haven't given you a reason not to trust them yet. And looking at this position group, I don't know. I mean, really, I've never seen a quarterback situation more like this, where the up and downs of Connor Wigman make it confusing, and then Marcel Reed always comes in and shines. He's still never lost. I mean, it's just hard to really figure this out. And I mean, they bring you two different things at times. I talked about yesterday, the one consistent thing you've seen in this room has been the legs of Marcel Reed. His legs have always been consistent, and that's incredibly important. You've got to have a consistent part of the game, and that's what his legs have been to this point. So I just don't know what this is going to look like. I just don't know what the future of this position is going to look like. But, you know, I believe in the future. I believe in the future of this position group when it comes to both these guys. What you do the rest of the season is tough, though. I don't know. With Reed, you have his legs. If Reed could be a little bit more accurate passing the football, it's not even a debate. You go with Marcel Reed. but he's been inaccurate at times. But then you say, well, on the flip side of that, Connor Rigman has 2, and he's supposed to be the one that is the surefire, accurate quarterback. So this is just really tough. And it's tough on the coaching staff too. I mean, this is not an easy thing that this coaching staff is going through here. So we need to trust in this staff, whatever they decide, whatever they go with. You got to trust in this coaching staff. But what they do when it comes to quarterback the rest of the season is going to be really interesting. But I just have this feeling that Connor Rigman is going to go out there and start when the Aggies take on South Carolina on Saturday. That's going to do it for today's episode of Locked On Aggies. Thank you all so much for being here every single day. I really, really appreciate it. Hope everyone has an outstanding rest of their day today. If you haven't already hit that subscribe button on YouTube, helps the show a ton. Hit the like button, helps. Turn on notifications, all that stuff helps. If you're listening on a podcast platform, leave 5-star review. All that helps the show as well. Hope everyone has a great rest of their day today, and we will see you tomorrow right here on Locked On Aggies.